Welcome to the Word for 2021. Today we're in Numbers chapter 11. In this chapter 11, verse 1, we read that the people complained. They complained about their hardships, and later they complained about meat. In verse 4, it says that the rabble with them started to complain, and they got people thinking, and this is what they said: "If only we had meat to eat. We're so tired of all of this manna." And they wailed to Moses. Well, how did Moses respond? In verse 13, Moses says this before God: "Where can I get meat for all of these people? I cannot carry all these people by myself." And then he says, "God, if this is how you're going to treat me, just kill me now." What a way for him to put it. He said, "God, if I have to deal with this forever, then just put an end to it now. End my life. I can't go through with it." Well, what did God then respond with? In verse 18, God told Moses to tell the people, "The Lord will give you meat, not for just 1 day or 2 days, not for 5, 10, 20 days, but for a month." Then God told Moses to tell the people, "Meat will come out of your nostrils to the point where you loathe it, all because you rejected the Lord." As I read these verses, this is what we learn. Sometimes God will give us what we want, even when it's outside of His will, but later we will come to regret it. God will permit us to do what we want, to make choices on our own. He will sometimes allow us to experience what we really desire, but if it's outside of His will, we will always come to regret it. And that's what's taking place here. God gave them what they wanted, but then they loathed it. Well, Moses, when he heard what God said, this is what he then said: "God, I don't see how this is going to happen. There aren't enough flocks or herds, and even if there's all the fish in the sea, that's not enough meat for all the people." How did God respond? He responded to Moses with a question. In my Bible, I've underlined this. I've highlighted it, and this is the question that God asked: "Is the Lord's arm too short?" For Moses, he was filled with doubt. Moses was overwhelmed with pressures and with problems. He was swamped with unbelief. You might be facing overwhelming problems today. You might be facing overwhelming pressures as well. You might be even tempted to ask, is God really able? Does God understand? Can God really come through? Will God keep His promises? The question that was asked of Moses, God is asking us too. Is the Lord's arm too short? No, it is not. God was able to do something that Moses didn't even consider. For Moses, all he could do was envision what he saw with his eyes, the flocks and the herds before him. He could only imagine all the fish in the sea. But God was able to do something that Moses didn't even consider. Moses never even thought of what God did. God caused a great wind to blow, and God brought quail into the camp, and it measured 3 feet deep all around the camp as far as a day's walk would be. God did more than they could ever ask, think, or imagine. God is able. His arm is never too short. God's ways are higher than our ways. God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. We may not be able to see what God will do, but God can do things that we would never even imagine in order to meet the problems that we're facing. God's arm is not too short. God can do miracles. God is able. So, since God's arm is not too short, no matter what pressure you're facing, no matter what problems are before you, trust Him and believe in Him, because God's arm is not too short. Thank you for joining the Word for 2021.